Hello everybody, my name is Paul Lambert and I just want to run through setting up your first Statseeker dashboard to get a feel for how to do it and get the job done in less than about 20 minutes. So basically there's a few steps to follow. Make sure you get a good result. The first thing, clearly, decide exactly what it is you want. Log on to Statseeker version 5.5.0, 1 or 3. And make sure you have all groups or admin access. It's quite hard to do this if you don't have access to all of the data. Things can appear to an admin or to other users that you don't know about. Open each of the default dashboards and make a copy. The reason for this is the best starting point is normally to modify dashboards Statseeker has already got, or at least panels. The copies can be edited. The original Statseeker default dashboards are fixed and they'll be there as a reference you can pull from at any time. But the copies we can make into what we want. We start with the saved dashboard, the copy we've just made that's closest to what we finally want. And then from that starting point, we delete the dashlets or panels we don't want. We copy panels or dashlets from other dashboards, and then we modify what we've got to make sure it's as close as we need it, in fact, exactly what we need. Then finally, once we've been through all that, we just make sure it looks right and set the permissions for anyone who should be able to see the dashboard or people that should in fact be able to edit it further. So when you start with Statseeker, what you'll usually see is default dashboards will be a folder that's always there. And for most of you, you'll see a general folder, which at the start will be empty. So as we said, the first thing we're going to do is decide what we want. And in this case, what I've decided I want on my dashboard, I want to see devices that are up and down. I want to see how much of my network's available today compared to yesterday. I want to know how many of my interfaces I'm actually using in the last 90 days. In addition, there's a particular interface. I want to see the utilization, transmit and receive. And finally, one of the most important tables people have is unreachable devices by ping. Which of these are currently down, and then to be able to drill down onto those and see what's gone wrong and when. So these are the panels that I want to include on my new dashboard. So moving back to Statseeker, let's move on. We've decided what we want. We've logged onto Statseeker, we've got our access. The next step is to open each of the default dashboards and make a copy we can use. So I'm logged on as admin. I've got access to everything I need. I open the default dashboards folder. The first thing I'm going to do is open each of these dashboards in a new tab. You'll see it appear at the top. Now, if you're using version 5.5.0 or 5.5.1, you'll see that there's 4 default dashboards. If you're using version 5.5.3, you'll see there's also a MAC IP default dashboard built in there. So these are the default ones. What I want to do now is save a copy of each of these. This is the asset overview. So what I want to do is go to settings, save as, and it will save this dashboard as an asset overview copy in the general folder. Save and overwrite. You guys won't see that. You don't have a file already saved there. I'm going to do the same again here. Settings, save as. So then I've got a copy of the device overview. The next dashboard that comes up, I think, is the interface overview. Again, I'm going on to settings, save as, and I'll save an interface overview copy. Yeah, overwrite it. The MAC IP address, MAC IP addresses. Save a copy of that one in the general folder. and finally the network summary. So I'm going to save a copy of that one too. Great. I've saved a copy of each of these, and now we'll see the title of each one of them is network summary copy, MAC IP copy. That these are copies I'm working with now. And the difference is now when I click on the file at the top on any panel, I've also got the option to edit, or even more things like duplicate, copy, or export. So that's why we've made copies of these. Now, coming back to what it is I actually want to have, the devices up and down and available today, and devices that are unreachable at the moment in a table format, these three panels are actually available in some form here on the network summary. So I'm going to keep the devices unreachable, keep, in this case, the last 10 currently unavailable. This matches very closely what I want. I've got devices, their state, the IP, the time they've been in this state, their location, and who's supporting them. And if I come back to this table, we'll see that's what we've got here. We've got the name of the device, IP, state, location, contact. Last change, now this last column shows how long it's been in that state. But so if I've got the time it's been in the state, that's good for me. And as we said, the first step is find the dashboard which is closest to what I finally want and delete whatever's not going to be useful to me. I don't need latency, upper status, last 10 events, ping delay. Don't need specifically RX and TX utilization. Discards or errors. Okay, so I can see I've got devices that are reachable, a comparison today and yesterday, devices that are reachable and devices that are unreachable on the network, and the last 10 current devices. So what am I still missing? I need to find a utilization graph. And in this case, I want to focus it down to Cape Town switch 1 in this particular interface. So I know as it happens that I'm going to find that on the interface dashboard, which is this one. Here's an interface utilization graph. And rather than make it from scratch, what I'm going to do is copy this panel as it is. I can see it's been copied. Go to my new dashboard that I'm making. Normally what we do is we add a new panel here. But rather than paste a new type, I can just, or add a new type, I can just paste the interface utilization graph I've just copied. I'll copy it to here, shrink the size down somewhat so it fits. Now, it's not happy. I'm not seeing any data, and it's saying there's an object in the filter which doesn't apply. So I go to, this is where we come to modifying panels to be what we want rather than starting them from scratch. So it told me that the problem is in the filters, and that's why there's an invalid filter there. It was probably referencing a variable selector at the top. So we can see when we go to the interfaces, we could select an interface here at the top, and that would apply to the whole dashboard. On the dashboard I'm making, I don't want an interface selector. I always want to see Cape Town. So I delete that. And I add a filter into here. I link it to the device name. And I happen to know that the device I want is Cape Town switch 1. So it's going to go through all of the groups. In fact, I shouldn't need the group filter. It's going to go through every device on my entire system. And if the name equals Cape Town switch 1, it's going to show me the utilization. Now, to see what that's going to look like, you click on the eye at the right twice. And now it's showing us every one of the interfaces on that specific device. I can see TX and RX. But what I said I wanted was Cape Town switch 1 GI3/28. I only wanted to see this interface. So now I add an additional AND filter, and the name of the interface that I'm after is GI3/28. Click somewhere else to enter it. Click twice on my eye. There. And now we've got a reading for GI3/28, RX and TX. And that's fine. I can change the time scale even dynamically and say, don't just show me today, show me this week. The graph will modify and show me it in the last period of time. But what I originally had in my graph was transmit was red, receive was blue, and everything was on the positive axis. So just so you know where to look, when you're modifying a graph, we've got a section for display, and you can choose things like modifying the line widths. I tend to find anything thicker than 3 starts to look like a crayon. We can also do series overrides. Now in this case, we've got the received data is being transformed into the negative. That's why transmit's on top, receives on the bottom, and all the received values are negative, which can help. It makes everything nice and clear. But that's not what I want. I want everything, as we said, I want both of my lines on the positive axis, transmit red, receive blue. So I don't want that. What I want there instead is to change the color so that my receive is now blue. And I also want to add that my transmit TX, TX, so that my transmit value, I'll change the color of that and make it red. Okay, that's a little bit closer to what I wanted. So basically it looks right. Problem is the title's still meaningless. So I'm going to call this instead Cape Town Cape Town GI3/28. Now I can put in more details here, anything I like in fact. You've got a secondary description, and that will appear normally on the little information icon. So I've now got the title I want, so the graph makes some sense. Looking at it, the only other thing missing is that the axis goes from -100 to +100 because one of the values was getting inverted. If I choose axis, if I have nothing in there, it auto scales, but I know everything's going to be a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 100%. So I can fix that. Now that is much closer to what I actually wanted. Let's make these graphs a little bigger. And that will be interesting when we're looking at an entire week's worth of data, and I can mouse over and see exactly what's there. So the only part which is missing now is interfaces that are being used and not being used in the last 90 days. And I believe we can find those values on assets. Again, this is the copy of the asset default dashboard. And I'm just going to take these copies from here, copy that. You can see it's been copied there. And again, rather than adding a new dashboard from scratch, I'm going to paste the one I've just copied. And blow up the size a little bit so it's a bit more interesting. Let me make the number a bit larger as well. So we've got the space there. Let's have it about that size. So I've got the active interfaces. Let me go back to the asset dashboard again. And this time I'm going to copy the unused interfaces. Come back here and paste them. Stick it underneath and drag it out. In fact, unused could well be more important. It shows unused real estate. So I think I'm going to make the text even bigger. Right, so basically I think we've got most of what we were looking for on our dashboard. Let me shrink this down a little. So we can see we've got our graph showing Cape Town utilization. We've got devices that are reachable today and yesterday, devices that are unreachable. We've got interfaces that are active or unused, and we've got a table which shows us exactly the devices which are unreachable at the moment, and lets us drill down to those on the device viewer exactly as we wish. So we've got the dashboard looking basically the way we want. One of the things I would do is change the name of it. And for that, we click on the settings and we say demos new dashboard. Go back. And as you know, we save these things. You can give them a name or you can even leave it blank. Let me call it Rev1. But what's more useful is to say, give something which would be useful for reference, because we can see all these previous versions. Seems complete. And then we'll make a change. We can, next time we save it, make a note of what that change was. So my dashboard's showing me what I wanted. Now the last step, if I pull up the PowerPoint again, the last thing that we really wanted to do was, once it looks right, set the permissions to decide who can see the dashboard. And to do that, again, we just go to settings, permissions. There's an editor role and a viewer role. If I'm going to limit permissions as to who's going to see it, I can choose different contacts here. We can choose entire groups, and we can decide what capability they have, either to view the data or in fact to edit the dashboard. And then we can save that. But what you should also be aware of is that anybody looking at this dashboard is limited by what data they're limited to. So if they only have the view to see European devices, interfaces, and data, then on this devices down and currently unavailable, they won't see Phoenix and they won't see Perth. They just won't appear on the list. The same with the comparison, devices reachable. It will only look at the devices relevant to that user. Interfaces active and inactive, it will all apply to whatever data that user has access to. But also, you've got control of who can even see the dashboard. So basically, I think we've gone through all of the steps. You've got a dashboard there. You can start. It didn't take a whole lot of work. We basically tweaked dashboards that were already available. And I think by doing that, you can probably solve 80–90% of your problems. And when you need anything else, this is where you can find the Statseeker docs page. And if you're looking for intensive training, we've got those available as well, also as videos on YouTube, or you can just give me or any of the regional sales managers a call. Okay, in that case, thank you very much for your time, everybody.